played a leading role and was very active attending all the summits and encouraging dialogue and, as you were talking about before, getting involved in negotiations between various states. There's also some worry about the transition process now that he is gone, and other African leaders hoping that there will be a peaceful succession within Ethiopia to avoid any violence or bloodshed.
As you talk about this transition process, I'm wondering in Somalia itself, especially among the Somali militants, which Ethiopia kicked out in 2006, one issued a statement, the spokesperson issued a statement saying that it's a historic day that Mr. Zenawi is now dead and that Ethiopia will now crumble. Is that a likely possibility that many are fearing and raising concern around?
I don't think there's any concern that Ethiopia will be, or I should say that Ethiopia's fight against militants in Somalia will be significantly weakened by Mr. Mellis's absence. Certainly he led the charge into Somalia in 2006 and again just last year along with several other powers here, including Kenya and AMISOM forces. But, you know, the militants here did see him as probably their biggest enemy. So if anything, now that they have lost him as a kind of figurehead to blame for problems in Somalia and for Ethiopian intervention, it could actually do some damage to their own cause.
Very briefly, Gabe, what about the impact of Mr. Zenawi's death on U.S. relations?
Well, yeah, Mr. Mellis was a big ally to the United States, not only a huge recipient of donor aid and development aid, but also a strong ally on the war on terror and seen as really one of the biggest defenders and well, I should say one of the biggest actors against Islamist militancy in Africa. So they have lost a strong ally with his death.
Well, thank you so much. Gabe Joselo joining us there from Somalia. Now I'm joined by Tizita Belachu, the managing editor for VOA's Horn of Africa service. Welcome to the show, Tizita.
Thank you, Demiaki.
I imagine that there's been an expectation in Somalia, in Ethiopia, excuse me, that this was going to happen. We've had a lot of these rumors. So now that it has happened, what are people saying?
Well, people are, you know, as tradition calls for, people are, you know, expressing their sorrow and their sadness that the Prime Minister's passing is now announced. You know, Ethiopians are very skeptical that he died just recently, or nobody knows when he died. But
so some are actually questioning that did he really die just Tuesday as it's being announced, or that he died before?
Before, because some, you know, opposition media has announced that he died before. At any rate, you know, the opposition has, you know, issues with the Prime Minister's policy. And, you know, others are expressing sorrow for his passing.
One analyst described him as one of the most intelligent leaders in Africa. And he's been widely credited for what he has done in Ethiopia, some of the good, boosting the economy, infrastructure, health, introducing health and education services to the people. People really, do they revere him for that?
Yes, I think Prime Minister Meles Zenawi is credited for being an avid reader, self-educated, bright man, and also, you know, has brought in some changes to Ethiopia regarding the economy, yeah, education, and infrastructure, as you suggested. But for most Ethiopians, the human rights issue is the critical issue, especially after the general election of 2005, when 200 people were shot dead. And many believe that happened by the direct order of the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister is the chairman of the party, the ruling party, EPRDF, and also chairman of his own Marxist-Leninist party, TPLF. And, so those are the two views about the Prime Minister in the country.
And you've touched on one of the things that he's been widely criticized about, human rights. And,
Yes.
of course, the suppression of the media, which I know as the Horn of Africa Service here, you've experienced very, very personally. What can be expected to change under the newly sworn-in Prime Minister now, Mr. Hailemariam Desalegn?
Yeah, according to analysts, nothing much, because this is a hand-picked man to replace the Prime Minister. And also his views, his policies are leaning towards, the China model of development or economic development over democracy kind of, view. So nothing is expected to change in Ethiopia in terms of, the new leadership.
Well, we'll watch and follow. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Tizita Belachu is the managing editor for the Horn of Africa service here at the Voice of America. Now, you can stay in touch with In Focus by going to our Facebook page. Just click like, read our stories, leave your comments. The address, facebook.com/VOA In Focus. And coming up, a South African mine strikes. We'll find out what the reactions are following that incident. Whether you live in Somalia, Senegal, Nigeria, or Zimbabwe, from every corner of sub-Saharan Africa, turn to us for information and experts to help you improve health and life, for you and your family, for your health. Africa Health Network, only on VOA. Welcome you back to In Focus. Now, a top official says Mali's new national unity government will focus on retaking control of the north from radical Islamist groups. Hamadoun Touré, who was Mali's Minister of Communication, says that hardliners seeking to impose Sharia are not welcome in the new government. He says Malian leaders will seek outside help to liberate the region from the Islamist groups, which are allegedly tied to Al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, Somalia's new parliament was sworn in Monday as the country moves ahead with efforts to establish a stable, permanent government. But it's still weeks away from electing a new president. 211 lawmakers took office in a ceremony held under tight security at the Mogadishu airport to prevent attacks by the militant group Al-Shabaab. Another 64 seats have yet to be filled in a process slowed by apparent corruption.
I am happy to have been elected as an MP, and it is also a great day for all Somalis to have constitutional parliament.
Now, in an interview with VOA's Somali Service, Constitution and Reconciliation Minister Ibrahim Hosh Jibril says the new lawmakers will elect a speaker and deputies by August 27 and a new Somali president by early September. Meanwhile, the owner of a South African platinum mine has softened its demands for striking workers to return to the job, saying those who fail to report Tuesday will be punished, but not necessarily fired. Lonmin PLC had originally told workers to return Monday or face dismissal, but extended the deadline to Tuesday in light of deadly violence at its Marikana mine. The company's executive vice president, Mark Monroy, told a radio station Tuesday that firing workers would be a setback in terms of violence and building trust. The company says about 33% of workers reported Tuesday morning, up from 30% Monday. Police killed 34 people at the mine last week after opening fire on striking workers. Some 3,000 rock drill operators launched the strike August 10th to demand higher wages. Others have stayed away from the mine to avoid violence. President Jacob Zuma has ordered a national week of mourning. And we're heading for another break. When we come back, curbing counterfeit drugs. An innovative service could help save a life. Stay with us.